Greetings! It is I, Countess Naravan Dracovin, Lord and Emperor of the Dracovin Empire, and welcome. It is time to continue my discussion on the 4th edition of Shadowrun. Well, we started talking about security last time. One of the major factors that you as the game master are going to know about, and you as the player are going to have to overcome. It's just as dangerous as any kind of critter or NPC you might encounter, and is one of the major factors you're going to have to overcome as a Shadowrunner. So, let's start with, of course, physical security. Because physical security is the basis for all securities. It's the most simplest, it's the part that people will build off of with other levels of security systems in order to build up the very defenses that they're going to have for their locations. Physical security is the start of everything. It's cheap, it's common, and it's the first deterrent to keep people out. And if it does, it successfully kept the criminals out, you're safe. So, the first one we want to talk about, landscaping. Landscaping? This is the most basic type of security you can have. This can be trees, shrubs, gullies, lakes, water in general. There can be so many ways that you can alter your landscape in order to add to security. The point will be to allow people to easily be spotted, possibly even trapped, or killed by some of your defenses as you set them up. You might have trees and shrubs in such a way that you have security hidden in amongst these trees and shrubs. So when people would try to hide in them, oh, they're setting it off. You wouldn't have trees near a building, but you might have shrubs nearby that people can't hide in, but it's loud and crunchy because they're dense shrubs that people can't easily walk through. These could also prevent people from escaping. You could have a big lake over part of the back of the building that if someone tries to escape out the back, they'd have to somehow cross this lake. It's a deterrent for them to escape that direction, while security might be coming in the front. You can see how just a little bit of landscaping can cause a massive change in the way that a criminal, someone breaking into a facility, would react. Now, this isn't to say there are other types of landscaping. Some corporations have begun using awakened plants, which have their own special abilities in defense of their facilities. So that's another threat that might even be there in association with this. Now, fences, barriers, walls, they basically are made to keep people out in a way. They're made to deter critters and people from traveling across them. Now, they can come in any variety of materials, any variety of forms. A fence could be electrified. A fence or a wall could have security on top of it. This can be sensors like cameras. It could be security turrets. It could have barbed wire across it. It could have some other kind of wiring across it. If you're trying to climb a wall, after you use a normal climbing, to climb over a wire requires a climbing plus agility 3 test, or you cut yourself on whatever kind of wire. And barbed wire is damaging enough, but mono wire, you're more than likely not going to spot it. That needs some kind of perception. If you fail that, you just don't even bother trying to avoid it. You cut yourself on it. So you can see we've already made our walls pretty dangerous and a pretty good barrier. Climbing over it might be pretty noticeable. If you do mess with wire, it is important to note there's information about them in a table in the book, and you resist with impact armor. Now, for the walls themselves, as I said, they could be made of any material. There are certain materials that prevent either cutting through them, kind of burrowing and damaging through them, or even explosions. So if you have these materials, they, of course, would be more resistance to this dangers against them. Many walls, especially when we get to the actual building, may have plumbing, electrical, or even ventilation/AC within the walls, which sometimes detracts from it, but in other cases, depending on the type of wall, might make it harder to break through. So you can see there is a complexity to the walls themselves that you have to have an idea about, because breaking through a wall is different than climbing over a wall. That's for sure. And fences have their own way of doing things. Barriers are just that. They're detractors. They're breakers. They slow people down. Now, this isn't to say that wires can't be used in other ways. You could have wire barriers on the grounds in between whatever barrier you started with and your building. These can be well hidden in various ways, including through the foliage and landscaping I was talking about. You could have wires and bushes. The fact is, if you do not notice them, you will take the wire damage as you move through. And things like monowire, which are hard to spot, could easily be set up as a defensive area in amongst a set of bushes that as soon as someone tries to walk through them, you get cut. And you get cut badly. So, wire itself could be just easily set up in a perimeter that's another defense. Lighting itself can be a security measure. This is both indoor and outdoor. Outdoor lighting you might have to basically keep things lit, keep people able to see things during any time of the day. This does work in both the cases. Allows security and patrols to notice things, allows things to be noticeable under any circumstances of lighting in the ambient world itself. The thing with outdoor lighting is it could be controlled by Wi-Fi just to turn it on. Normally it might be on during certain times of day, certain types of events. It could be things like motion might trigger them. You could set up lighting outside in a variety of different ways that would make it logical to help you basically notice things. Motion's a really great one. Just on at night all the time is also not a bad one. Brightness basically beats back the shadows, prevents people from hiding as easily. Now, indoors on the other side, they might just have things like manual switches, or it could be that certain times of day it's lit in areas, other times it's not, or it could be basically set up like proximity. If someone's in a room, it might turn on. You might want to, of course, mess with a light switch. This is going to be a hardware plus logic extended test where you need 5 successes over 1 combat turn. Now, there are a couple of special types of lighting, too, which I'm not going to go into full detail about, but if you want to add them into your security, they are listed in the book, which include ultraviolet and active infrared. Now, doors and windows. These are both points of egress for normal people that work at the building, but also for burglars, criminals, and the like. It's a very good point where they can enter into your building. So, doors can be made of any similar material as equal to walls and barriers. They could have their own locks, their own security, their own alarms. Doors themselves can be a specialized barrier that helps keep people from entering into it unless they're authorized. Windows, on the other hand, have evolved greatly when we come into 2070. There are special types of polarized glass, which you could use Wi-Fi to affect the tinting of. On the other hand, there is also transparent concrete. Concrete that you can look through it just like you look through average glass that we would see nowadays, but it's got the hardness of concrete. So it's as difficult as concrete to break through. So, yeah, that's an interesting one that you can deal with if you're trying to break into a building. That's a hard window to get through. So you can see how, even though it seems like doors and windows are the obvious place to enter, they're not always as easy to overcome. They have their own levels of defenses you can put into them that make them a challenge to get through just as much as busting down a wall. But that's it for today. I started going over physical security. I started with the basics of landscaping, the area outside of your building. I talked about barriers, walls, fences. This can be the outer walls around a perimeter or some kind of fencing around a perimeter. It could just be the walls of your facility, too. There are levels of a wall that make it a difficult barrier to overcome. Not only just climbing it over, but breaking through it. I then, of course, talked about things like lighting. I talked about things like wires you could use. And I finished up by talking about your doors and your windows, because these are something you're probably going to want to put at least a few of in your building. And their exact defense rating going to depend on them. In the next episode, we're going to finish talking about physical security and move on to the other types of security that you can handle, well, use or deal with on your Shadowrunning adventures. But if you have any questions, comments, anything you want to say, anything you think I left out, please leave in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. It shows you support the channel, the empire, the work I do. If you want to show some extra support, you can always check out my Patreon. Link description below. There's some great rewards there. It helps to grow and improve the channel and the empire. But regardless, until the next time, I bid you farewell.